like it or not. So this is my view. You've taken someone's life because they put that drug in the body, even though it was asked by 2 or 3 people.
Yeah.
You're still that last person who put it into their body, and that's why there's so many countries who don't believe in euthanasia or assisted suicide.
Hello and welcome to the Spaghetti Junction podcast. My name is Bruce.
And my name is Gareth.
We talk about things.
We just don't know where they're
gonna go.
No, we don't.
How you doing, buddy? It's good to see you, man.
Likewise, man. It's I'm still getting, over the fact that we are on episode 20. I think we were more excited than a lot of other people, but whatever.
Well, it's our podcast.
We worked it really hard. I agree with you.
We're allowed to.
We're allowed to
excite,
to enjoy these milestones. Because 20 is not bad at all. So then 21 actually now sounds a little bit more grown up.
I think so. Yeah, we're on. Yeah, we should maybe be celebrating episode 21 more than episode 20.
Because we're all grown up now. We move into the rest of our life.
We can do stuff. We can
do stuff. What do you mean by do stuff?
I don't know. Do like adult stuff now?
Oh, that's the
wrong. Then again, in South Africa,
that's the wrong podcast, pal.
So
that's the wrong podcast. We can do the other one that we spoke about, but not this one.
But then again, in South Africa, it's the legal age for doing almost anything is 18.
Exactly.
Whereas for our American listeners, if there are any, it's 21, I think.
If they want to drink, it's 21, yeah.
But yet they'll put a 16-year-old behind the wheel of a car.
Or you can put I don't know how old you have to be for a gun as well, but I'm sure it's also pretty young. Probably not under the age of 21 though. But yes, I don't understand. I mean, the more that you make something illegal, the more that people, because when I was in the States, obviously half a lifetime ago, the amount of people, youngsters who would come to me and ask me to go and buy them alcohol. And either you would choose to have a conscience and say no, or like, shame, these poor kids who at home I can drink at your age, and then you would go and help them, which is illegal, by the way.
Yeah.
If you got stopped. But I actually don't know if I actually did help them do that. I actually think at that point in my life, I actually had a conscience. Now it's
as opposed to now.
I just do what I got to do and ask for forgiveness later.
It's easier to ask for forgiveness than it is to ask for permission. Eh?
Yeah, because a lot of the times you can't do stuff, and if you've already done it, then what's going to happen?
Yeah.
Although depending on what you do, could end up in jail time.
That's also true.
Like here in South Africa, if you're caught without a mask, you can go between 4 to 6 months in prison if you're like a real idiot, like Karen, for example.
Oh my word.
You can get fined, and you could end up in being in prison between, I think it was like 3 and 6 months. Sorry.
Damn.
And a fine on top of that. Yeah, we don't play games here.
Jeepers.
Bloody Karens must go. But we've already spoken about these things.
Wow. I think I tend to when I get out of the car in the car park, I tend to only put my mask on as I'm walking up to the shop.
Yeah.
So maybe I should put my mask on before I get out of the car.
You never know who's watching.
You never know.
Exactly.
Karen might be watching.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk to the manager?
I want to bring up something that I've been enjoying, and I know you're aware of it roughly.
Please do.
17th of April is a reasonably big fight in the boxing calendar, but not all boxing enthusiasts see it as a real boxing match, because it's between a YouTuber and an MMA wrestling fighter, as an MMA fighter, but he's like really well known for his wrestling and his chokeholds and whatever.
Okay. So
this dude, and we have spoken about Logan Paul in one of our previous podcasts. So this is Jake Paul, Logan Paul's brother. And he's been calling out all these fighters like left, right, and center. He went right after after Conor McGregor, like the biggest person you shouldn't piss off. Yeah. And he was saying Jake Paul's like in his early 20s. He's an idiot. And Conor McGregor is like, Jake, what? She doesn't even give a shit about him. So anyways, he called out this character, this person called Ben Askren, who is who retired from UFC about a year or two, and his last fight, unfortunately, has been made into, I think it's been made into memes, but he's unfortunately his last fight is the one that's most known about, where he got knocked out in 5 seconds.
Okay.
Yeah, he got knocked out in 5 seconds.
Jeez.
With a knee to the head.
I mean, Ben Askren got knocked out.
Ben Askren with a knee to the head. And after that, he was like, yeah.
It's embarrassing.
Yeah, he's kind of known. But I mean, look, that happened two years ago. So, I mean, he has seen everything, heard everything, is like, whatever, meh. And he actually runs his own wrestling academy now for youngsters. That's what he does full time.
Okay.
So Jake Paul was looking for people to fight and people to piss off. So somehow Ben Askren, got on the radar. Jake Paul, to like try and goad Ben Askren, he found his wife's, I think it was his wife's Instagram account, and trolled that. Someone got her number.
My word. And
he started to send these nonsense messages, to which she then made a whole, I think it was an Instagram thing as well, where she just roasted Jake Paul silly. He didn't see it coming. And Ben Askren was like, okay, whatever. So 17th of April, it's going to be a bizarre match, because Jake Paul he's had 3 fights.
Okay.
2 YouTubers who he beat. And the third was against Nate Robinson, which we mentioned a while ago, who's used to be a basketball player. Used to be, years ago. And he got clean knocked out.
Yeah.
Then I think it was the second round. I could be wrong.
I remember the footage of
it's
that.
the first or the exactly. He just went limp.
Those mats.
But the fact that Jake Paul is using those, saying that he's a professional boxer, he hasn't really had someone of extreme, like a level of I actually do this for a living.
Yes.
Now, fair enough, Ben Askren isn't a boxer, but he's been wrestling and fighting in the UFC. I don't know for how long,
okay.
But I think it's way more than 10 years, maybe 20. Point being, he's been doing it for a huge portion of his life.
Sure.
And he's seen and fought some like hectic characters. I mean, if you watch UFC, you'll see.
But he hasn't fought as a boxer.
No, he hasn't fought as a boxer. So that's why this fight is slightly, I wouldn't say comical, but. So Ben Askren was like, he was asked like, well, why did you take this? He said, because he had, I think it was hip surgery and stuff. So he said, he needed a reason. To go back, to go back in the gym and
right.
And to work out. And the money offer was, he was like, okay, well, let's just go do it. It's worth a few million. It's a shitload of money.
Well, then even
if he loses, he said to the guys,
payday.
Yeah, I mean, he said in an interview on Impulsive, the Logan Paul one, which was the recent podcast he did.
Yeah.
That even if he lost,
yeah,
he's made a lot of money, and then he'll get like ripped off by a bunch of the youngsters at his academy, and life would go on. So he's not seeing this as like crap. If I lose, I lose. He's super chilled about it.
Yeah,
I think the person who will get roasted more is Jake Paul.
Well,
so it's going to be fascinating. And also, what's interesting. Oh, and maybe I'll put my view down here. After watching, Ben Askren, he's a big guy. He's like huger than Jake Paul.
And Jake Paul's about 6'1", 6'2", isn't he?
I don't know. No,
Is it Logan Paul's the bigger brother?
Logan Paul is I think he's probably like in his late 5 point something or other. He's not 6 foot.
Okay.
So anyways, I think if Jake Paul doesn't knock Askren out in the first 3 rounds, he's going to slow down, he's gonna to lose his energy, and Ben Askren will probably finish him off. So just because Ben Askren has been doing UFC fights where you have to be tip-top shape, have to be fit the whole way through. Now bear in mind though, he hasn't been doing it for about 2 years, so that's why it's a very hard one to call. I think it's more of an entertainment thing than anything.
This is all about it's marketing. But considering that he's got all of those years of fighting experience behind him, that'll probably
he has it.
That'll probably sit in his favor. So,
but now, as you say though, he hasn't boxed before, and he's had less than a month of boxing training. So if Jake Paul finds the right time and the right shots, Askren, but to knock from what I've understood, Askren has never been knocked out.
Wow.
I don't think he's ever been knocked out.
Okay.
Because he's huge.
Yeah.
So for Jake Paul to bring down this freaking thing of brick, and if it didn't cost so much, it's about $50 to watch it online. $50, and we're looking at about 800 rand.
Jeepers.
And I'm not spending 800 rand on a Jake. As much as I want to see it,
no, it's
800 rand.
We'll find the replay on YouTube.
Exactly, we'll find it somewhere. Okay, and now what's very interesting, about this fighting and everything, it's been organized and ran by a group, by a company called Triller, Triller. There are 2 owners linked with it, and one of them is Snoop Dogg.
Oh wow!
So Snoop Dogg and dude, I want to tell you, in this fight, this just made me laugh. As in, you can see that that it's not a normal boxing match, and they're not trying to say this is like a huge boxing.
Yeah.
Performing at this, so there are performers at this thing. You've got Justin Bieber, Diplo, the Black Keys, Doja Cat, Major Lazer, along with a group called Mount Westmore, which is made up of Snoop Dogg and a bunch of other people.
Yes,
so it's like a whole freaking entertainment thing more than a. But here's a fascinating thing, that I guess we can end off so we can get into our topic. Excuse me. Sorry, my microphone. But there's a character that we also mentioned in the Logan Paul one called Eddie Hearns. Eddie Hearns. He is my brain's going. He actually runs and produces the UFC fights, and he's actually linked with the UFC organization. He's big,
right?
And for example, there's a big boxing match happening in the UK this year where he represents one of the boxers. Anyways, he said in a podcast recently that he's going to bet $1 million that Jake Paul's going to lose. So Jake Paul heard about it and he said, I'm with you and I up you to 2 million. I think Early Haynes was like, I'll stick with 1. But basically, if Jake Paul wins, he gets another $1 million.
Yes.
If he loses, then he'll have to take $1 million off his paycheck. Because Eddie, sorry, I'm saying his last name wrong probably. Anyways, Eddie, he's more, I wouldn't say appalled, but he feels that it's making the whole boxing, industry look like a farce, because you've got YouTubers and random people fighting that really aren't boxers. I
think I'm probably going to side with him on that one, because it's just like, it's these marketing ploys, and they're taking, and a lot of guys, they get hardcore about their particular sport.
Yes.
And when you put on a spectacle,
don't play,
that's actually got nothing to do with, where you've got these they're non-boxers, they're non.
No, exactly. Even though, Jake Paul sees himself as a professional boxer, but
no, he's a professional YouTuber.
He hasn't fought an actual boxer yet.
Yeah.
So anyway, so that's the 17th of April.
Should
if you have
interesting.
$50 to spare it. I would say don't spend it. Although, look, I mean, it's a whole lot of fun. And there are actually some real boxers on the undercards.
Yes.
One of the other fights, I don't remember who it is and what it is, but there's one guy who is a billionaire businessman. He used to fight, but he's actually on the boxing card. That's when you really know.
Wow.
Shame. And the guys who actually really box are the undercard to this freaking YouTube UFC shitstorm. So it could be fun.
Jeez,
Anyway, sorry. I know it's a bit of a longer intro, but I'm quite passionate about this.
Yeah, I must say I'm going to be interested to see that fight. I'm not a big boxing guy and I'm not a big UFC guy.
Yeah.
But I'll sit and watch that.
We'll
make
fun.
a plan. Yeah.
Exactly. We'll watch it sometime. Yeah. Thanks, pal. I appreciate it. Listening to my passionate cry about that.
Your passionate diatribe.
Thank you. Yes, passionate diatribe.
I love that word, diatribe.
It's a very good word, Bruce.
I know.
And there is probably no way to segue into this other topic, so I won't even try. There's definitely not no, I can't make any. I don't want to make any jokes linked between this topic and linking to the topic of the other one. We'll just leave it the way it is.
I honestly don't know how you would.
Oh.
So you can tell me after the podcast.
I can, but it'll be a little bit...
I don't know how you would actually segue.
It'll be a little bit distasteful. So, so yeah, I'll tell you after this is fine.
Okay, cool.
So you brought up this topic recently.
I did.
And you were quite fascinated about it. And then it actually made me think about it because I'm aware of it slightly. And then, I've also done a bit of research. And it's actually quite interesting. It's a whole moral dilemma, I think is a good way to put it.
I think so. And it's also one of those, it's one of those, it's one of those things that people will have a lot of emotional investment in. From a moral point of view, from a spiritual point of view.
Yeah.
Is this...
What is this now? What is... where are we going with this topic? Please help people where we're going. I know that they probably, read our title, but I thought just to bring in people properly.
So we're talking about the whole, everything around human euthanasia and assisted suicide.
I like how you put human euthanasia. I like it because I was actually going to bring up something.
Yeah, euthanasia can be animals.
Exactly. That's cool. I like it. I like it.
See.
No, I'll definitely bring that in sometime.
And this whole thing of, a lot of people agree with it. A lot of people disagree with it. And there are countries around the world, particularly European countries, plus some US states.
But it's a bit more than euthanasia, I think, as well.
Definitely, yeah.
And there's also the other thing, which I wasn't aware of properly, was assisted dying or assisted suicide.
Yeah. So there's and that's there's a difference. There's
correct.
A big difference.
That is correct.
So
that is correct, Bruce.
So basically, just to sort of put a little bit of a background thing, euthanasia is basically assisted death with the help of a medical practitioner. I think that's pretty much where I...
Well, okay. Euthanasia, from what I understand, I think it's close. It's refers to active steps that are taken to end someone's life, to stop their suffering, and the final deed is undertaken by someone other than the individual.
Correct.
For example, a doctor, and then if the person concerned... but then that'll come probably from the advice of family members or something like that, linked in with the doctor.
It's basically in circumstances where the illness is terminal, and there is unbearable suffering.
Correct.
Where it would not even be, where it might even be an act of cruelty to keep the person alive because of how much they're actually suffering. And that's the
difficult thing.
And that's a fine line, hey.
Yeah.
That's a very fine line.
And what's interesting is that if the person concerned has requested it, it falls under the term voluntary euthanasia.
Yes, it does. And I think there are, even though in certain countries it's legal or whatever, the medical practitioner is allowed to actually refuse in certain circumstances.
Okay.
To say, I'm sorry, I'm not not comfortable with this.
But I think if there's enough pressure from the family, and there are exactly what you're saying, if there are those set things that
criteria, basically.
Criteria. I think if the same ones are, if they are the right criteria, I don't think a doctor can say no.
Yeah. So basically, I think at least I think this is more from the point of what happens in the Netherlands. I think the Netherlands has been the latest
Okay.
I think country to actually like legislate it and actually make it legal.
Yeah.
It has to be from the request of a competent patient. So the patient need still to be rational.
But what happens if they've been in a coma or they're a vegetable for the next year? True. They can't. That's where the family steps in.
Exactly.
So it's not always that easy.
Yeah. Then point 2, unbearable suffering. If the person is if there is no if it's a hopeless situation with absolutely no possibility of recovery.
Yeah.
And then a physician, obviously a medical professional, needs to give their opinion.
Yeah, they have to be there, exactly.
And then it also, if it's going to actually happen, it needs to be done in a medically advised manner.
Correct.
They will. So they've got different ways of.
Yeah, the one way is that if it has been approved, that they allow one of the family members to. No, they don't. The family member will ask the medical practitioner, and they actually switch off the machine which is helping them breathe.
Yeah. So would that whole process of switching off the machines be the same as possibly injecting a substance into a patient?
Oh, that is possible. I've actually heard about that
that's
too.
Also,
and
that's something I actually didn't think about.
No, I don't think. No, because if someone. No, that's different. If someone has been on life support,
yes,
that's when the doctor can. And from what I'm thinking, the majority of people who are like at that stage are probably on some form of life support. Yeah. I don't know though. An answer to your question: can they be injected? I'm not sure.
Well, I would say, wouldn't you say that switching off machines of someone who's being held on life support could be under the term euthanasia? Would you say that, or? Oh,
yes, because, and what I find fascinating is that when I heard the whole thing of euthanasia, that's what we do to our animals. We let them pass on into the next life.
So that they don't
people
suffer.
Who believe in doggy heaven. I'm sorry, there's no dog heaven. Your dog is being used for being the nutrition to your next oak tree.
Rose garden.
A rose garden, exactly. It's an underground compost heap. Sorry.
Damn, son.
I told you I wasn't in the best of mood this weekend. So everyone who believes that, I'm sorry to say, maybe your 6-year-old shouldn't believe the truth sometimes. Lie to them for a while. Do you really want to lie to your kids? That's a great way to start. There's no tooth fairy, and your dog is not going to doggy heaven.
Oh wow!
Suck it.
Damn.
Exactly.
Jeepers. We should have put a disclaimer at the beginning of this episode. My word.
Exactly.
Okay. Something very interesting in the Netherlands, children from the age of 12 are actually allowed to make this request. And
12.
But if they're under 16, there needs to be added parental consent.
So at 12, they can say, I'm in way too much pain, I want to die.
If a child is in that situation, if they are,
but that would have to be in a really bad situation.
It would be hectic. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, jeepers. But that's the law.
So look at this.
What have you found?
Well, I mean, you can't look at it, obviously. But so, I wanted to know, like, how euthanasia is done to humans. It is performed by the attending physician, which we said, administering a fatal dose of a suitable drug to the patient on his or own express request. The relevant Dutch legislation, because we're speaking about that, also covers physician-assisted suicide, where we'll go a little bit later. But yeah, so this one, so basically, if you're not on life support, they can give you drugs to do it.
Yeah.
That immediately makes me think of death row. Immediately.
Yeah, death by lethal injection.
Because they're putting something into your body that will kill you.
Yes.
Now, obviously, in death row, they have made a bunch of boobies and people just haven't died. But in general, they're doing what they would do to a prisoner on death row.
Yeah.
And that's just, I don't know.
and that's where that dilemma comes in. You
Yeah.
know, is it right? Is it wrong?
Yeah.
What, are there acceptable circumstances?
I wouldn't want to be any physician in that, I'll be honest.
Well, remember the first rule of being a doctor is do no harm. So
Well, that is linked. What you're talking about is the Hippocratic Oath.
yes, exactly.
And that, but this is also different because initially, and this is, I don't know when the when that oath came into being. I don't know, but it was changed. So originally it was, I will neither give a deadly drug to anybody who asks for it, nor will I make a suggestion to this effect. Then it's been changed to a modern oath. Now I don't understand. Well, I guess the world views change, and
Definitely.
and then there has to be more allowance for people's choices and PC and whatever. So one of them states, if it is given me to save a life, all thanks, but it may also be within my power to take a life. This awesome responsibility must be faced with great humbleness and awareness of my own frailty. That's another version that's been written about the Hippocratic Oath. So it's changed completely. It says, I will never do it. And now it's saying, I understand the responsibility and I can actually...
Yeah.
I don't know, dude. It just makes me think the last person, okay, so the person who gave those drugs to the person and that person died, does that mean that you murdered someone? Because you put something into someone's body and they've died.
Yeah.
You're the one who pushed it in.
Yeah.
You're the one, for example, at the prison, who pressed the button, and the person died.
Yeah.
I don't want to find that out because you killed like it or not. So this is my view. You've taken someone's life because they put that drug in the body, even though it was asked by 2 or 3 people.
Yeah.
You're still that last person who put it into their body, and that's why there's so many countries who don't believe in euthanasia or assisted suicide, because they perceive it as you just killed someone, you murdered someone.
Yeah.
That's why
And then
that's just me.
And then you have the other side of the coin, whereas yes, you've ended that person's life.
Yeah.
But you've also ended their suffering.
True that.
And that's like, what would you like? It's almost like an impossible decision. It's like what
I would never want to be in the middle of that.
That would be tough. Now, something very interesting happened just yesterday.
Yeah.
And I can't believe the coincidence because of the timing of this particular podcast. I had a guitar student, quite a few years ago. Great young kid. I don't think he could have been more than about 15 when he started coming to me for lessons, maybe 16. And he loved his lessons, and he was a very cool kid. And I think he ended up stopping lessons. I think he just maybe didn't have time or whatever, and just had to stop for some reason. And then we were friends on Facebook, and I was friends with his parents on Facebook and stuff. And then I heard about the fact that he ended up having a tumor developed in his brain, but at the sort of near the base of his brain where it's very difficult to operate.
Yeah.
And basically, he didn't get better. And I actually ran into his parents just yesterday.
Yeah.
And they told me that 2 weeks ago he actually passed away.
Wow.
And I don't think he could have been more than about 18. And he fortunately he had a very strong faith in God. He didn't waver at all with his faith and everything like that. But his suffering, I mean, it was incredible what he went through. I did go and visit him.
Oh, you did? Okay.
And but admittedly a couple of years ago. But he was struggling with his eyesight. He was struggling with his hearing.
Wow.
It affected all his senses.
That's insane.
Towards the end, he couldn't even move his arms or his legs. He lost his hearing. He lost his sight.
No.
It literally.
That's horrid.
It literally did not. He literally did not get better. And I was actually talking to his dad yesterday, and even his dad was saying, "What would you rather have? Would you rather see your son, your child, suffer like that for 4 years before dying, or get that phone call saying your son has suddenly passed away?"
Yeah.
Like, that's an impossible. Like, what would you rather have?
Sorry, are you saying
like
that if they had the option to help him to die, they would have done it?
Well, no, I'm not saying that. I'm saying, maybe if South Africa had that option.
Sure, but
that is a tough one, hey. But it's like, what do you? Because to see someone suffer like that. I've seen it with my grandparents and that, and it's so tough.
Yeah,
it's so tough. But yeah, it's.
Can we bring in, for time wise, assisted suicide?
Yes. Oh my word, we haven't even.
No, and we're heading towards.
we haven't even spoken about.
We don't want it to get like a friggin' page and a half or like a whole book of timing. So no, just to keep us, on the straight and narrow, with our timing. Yeah,
absolutely.
Assisted suicide.
That's a whole other.
Yeah, we're not going to probably get into it all properly, but it is as it sounds.
Basically, helping someone to end their life.
It's basically euthanasia, but on the decision of the actual person.
And where a medical professional and a legal side of things is not really. And there are some states in America where it is legal.
Oh, there's quite a few actually.
Yeah.
So basically, the person who actually ends there, compared to euthanasia, which is done by a doctor or medical professional, assisted suicide is that the person actually does the final act. And it's interesting how you can see the complete difference of euthanasia, where they're helped to die, and that person I still think is, I don't know, but the person who actually switched it off or who gave this person the drug and they died, sure.
Yeah.
But this one's very clear. But still, you're assisting someone to kill themselves. So you're part of the process. Sure, you
complicit.
Didn't make the final thing, but it's kind of like murder and assisted murder. I know it's not. This is how I think, how I'm trying to fathom these things. It's like, sure. So yeah, they normally get, from what I was reading up on, they'll get like something to drink, for example, or where they'll make their final thing. Or there's the drug, which will go into a system and die, and there's the button. And the person who to do it, they're the person who will actually, drink the liquid or will push the button that will then, move everything into the system, and then they'll die.
Yeah. Maybe the person who assists is maybe procures whatever they're going to take to, maybe it's
so difficult.
It is, because, and that's such a fine line, because, what are the mitigating circumstances? Because I see
they don't just do it for anybody.
Exactly. And the thing is with
at all
with euthanasia, it's it's a medically, basically a medically induced death. I think that you could
Correct.
probably,
Yes.
whereas there is the opinion of a physician. There are extenuating circumstances. They're in a hospital bed. They can't move. They can't talk. The suffering is unbearable. Whereas assisted suicide, you could just call it suicide, really.
Yeah, but it's assisted though. So that's why it's called assisted. It's specifically someone assists them to get to the point where they will kill themselves. That's why it's assisted. Otherwise, you don't need anybody in the room, and they'll find their way.
Maybe it is someone,
to end themselves.
Maybe it is someone who is suffering, and maybe they can't afford the medical way of going about it.
Yeah.
Or, that's also that's a bit of a rabbit hole to go down as well, because.
Yeah. There's this thing called palliative, I think that's the word, sedation. This I didn't know about, in which people can request to be kept under deep sedation until they die.
Yes, because that I can understand how that would ease suffering.
And that's easy, and that's just allowing them to be peaceful until they die.
Yes.
So they don't actually, no one
pushes a button.
Pushes
no
the
one
button.
Does anything.
They're just saying that will keep you going until you pass away.
Yeah.
Or like
that's basically just keeping someone comfortable.
Yeah.
In their last last days, in their last
exactly.
months of their life, and whatever.
Exactly. Almost like an induced coma kind of thing.
Medically
well,
induced
actually,
coma.
no, because that's for a period of time to allow the person to heal and so forth.
Yes, and then they bring them out.
This other one isn't. Can I bring in, depending on our time, can I bring in like a few arguments for and arguments against?
Please do.
All right, cool. So some of these arguments for, which is the obvious number one, is the freedom of choice, which is why this whole, Hippocratic oath was changed because of freedom of choice. Quality of life, which we spoke about.
Yes.
Only the patient really knows how they feel and how the physical and emotional pain of illness and prolonged death impacts their quality of life. Dignity, fair enough.
Yeah.
Witnesses, for example, who basically, witness the slow death, of that person, believe that assisted death should be allowed, because of what that person is going through, and they might not be able to say, I want to pass away.
Yeah.
They make it, Humane, for example.
Right.
One line is, we already do it, and we're getting into the whole animal thing. If one of your pets, has intractable suffering, it's just not going to go away.
Yes.
It is seen as an act of kindness to put it to sleep.
Yes.
Why should this kindness be denied to humans? This is a whole nother topic.
Yeah, it's like
animals
call it a kindness.
and humans. Animals aren't the same as humans, and it's difficult. I don't know.
Yeah, because remember, animals don't deal with moral dilemmas,
and they don't. No,
animals do not reason.
No,
animals live by instinct.
Exactly.
Whereas,
and they don't. I believe they haven't got a soul or a spirit.
Yeah,
and that's what makes us different.
Yes.
To animals, it's a whole different thing. So to equate what animals go through and what humans, it's a completely different dilemma and sets of rules, and it's not that simple.
No, it's not.
Now, a few arguments against it. For example, the doctors, or medical practitioners' role, saying that healthcare, professionals may be unwilling to compromise their professional roles, especially in the light of the original Hippocratic oath.
Right.
Moral and religious arguments. Several faiths see that euthanasia as a form of murder and morally unacceptable, and suicide too is illegal in some religions. I don't know, it could be illegal, but I think in churches, I think it's difficult. Suicide, in fact, in the church which I go to, we had a few weeks of of discussions, sermons, whatever you want to call them, about mental health and so forth.
Yeah.
And one of the views that came out, which I actually think is quite powerful, is when you're in that point where everything is dark, like the only thing you can see is death.
Yes.
It's like the deep, darkest. Praise God that I haven't. Okay, I've only been there once, but nothing as intense as other people.
Yeah.
The only way they see out of that is to die.
Yes.
Well, it was brought up in the in the conversation, which some will believe and some won't accept, whatever, is that they died by suicide. They didn't kill themselves by suicide. They died, by suicide. They died by cancer. They died by brain tumor. They died by suicide. Very different view, but it just made me think about it. Like, if that person is in the darkest of places and they haven't chosen to have this mental illness, they haven't chosen to have, acute depression.
Yes.
And the only thing they see is they just can't get out of this pain besides dying. It's not like it's like, one day they're like, you know what, actually, this is really bad. I'll just, I'll see how my day goes. If it's really bad, then I'll die. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I'll go to the shops, I'll buy, bread and milk, and then I might die later in the afternoon. I know it sounds very facetious. My point being, the deepest, darkest hole where someone can be, and it's a horrid feeling. I haven't been to that extreme, but it's a horrid feeling, and there's no way out.
Yeah.
You literally, the only way which you can see to get out of this pain is to die. They died by suicide.
Sure. And that's
sorry, it's a bit off, but
that's in the wording as well. It's
that's why I quite liked it. What do you think?
It's an interesting way of looking at it.
Yeah.
But it's still suicide.
Yeah.
It's killing yourself is suicide, and dying by suicide is killing yourself.
It's just seen, though, the reason why it was discussed, exactly what I'm saying to you, is when that person, there's no other way of going, like they literally just want to die. Because they cannot take everything happening to them. It's the dark, it's horrid. It is suicide, fair enough.
Yeah.
But I think it was just bringing to life. Anyways, it was another way of seeing it.
Yes. I get you.
Yeah. So arguments we said against.
Yeah.
Things like the competence of the patient. Euthanasia is only voluntary if the patient is mentally competent, with a lucid understanding of available options and consequences, and the ability to express that understanding. So determining or defining, competence is also not straightforward. So you see how difficult, it's very, very difficult.
Yeah.
For example, mental illness. A person with, for example, with depression, is more likely meant to be from a trusted source to ask for assisted suicide, and this can complicate the whole decision.
Yeah. Sure. It's a minefield, eh?
Dude, it's a lot, but it's very interesting. I'm glad you brought it up, because otherwise I wouldn't have actually even thought about that kind of thing.
It's not fully legal in South Africa.
No, not at all.
There was something in 2015 where something was requested, but still years later we haven't had a solid legislation on it.
But what's fascinating is, look, and it's not now, but here in South Africa, the whole death sentence and the whole death row and whatever. So we're not allowed. So it's humane. I guess I was going to say it's humane to inject a person in prison to die. So you're giving that allowance to a hardened criminal, but you won't give that allowance to someone who's
to a normal citizen who's
the other side of the law, who's suffering more. It's just
that's crazy. Sure, I never even thought about that.
Yeah.
Damn, son.
Yeah, it's interesting. Eh?
Good
Now,
shit.
now, fair enough. The person on death row isn't in pain. Well, they're not really in pain. They just have to. And again, the whole death row thing as well. You're giving the power and the allowance to a state or one person to kill somebody as well. So did you assist their suicide?
Executions. That sounds like another podcast topic.
So in some ways, that was also assisted suicide. Although the person that doesn't want to be killed, so what?
So it's government. It's government.
Wow.
So it's
Boom.
government murder.
Because it's not assisted suicide, because I can guarantee you that person won't go, yep. Okay, there had been a few who were like, you know what, I've done shit and I just believe that I should die.
Yeah.
But in general, no one says, yes, please, I want to die in 2 weeks, or,
Well, I think that's why they're saying, well, execution is, I suppose it's the ultimate punishment.
Well, guessing is you're not going to.
Yeah, you're erasing, you did bad stuff and you are now being erased from the face of the planet.
Correct.
Basically.
Yeah. It's a whole other thing.
And on that note.
That's fascinating. And on that note, that's so interesting though, dude.
That was an interesting one.
Wow. Yeah. I'm going to have to think a lot about this. It's just interesting.
It is very.
Sure.
This has been the Spaghetti Junction podcast.
It has indeed, Bruce.
My name is Bruce. And his name is?
I believe it's Gareth.
He's so far down the rabbit hole, we've forgotten his own name.
When we have like reasonably in-depth, which I enjoy.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm just like, let me get out of the rabbit hole because I'm stuck, man.
This time we're going to find some lunch.
We're going to get some lunch to eat.
Here in South Africa,
exactly. So it's been good. Thank you, sir, for this podcast. It's been challenging, but I think it's very fascinating. I always use the word fascinating. I actually need to find another word. Every episode I go, that was fascinating.
But if something's fascinating, then it's fascinating.
Well, it is, but I think I probably have to have another word next time we do this.
Okay.
So I'm fascinated that we're going to end this. Thanks, guys, for listening. It's always good. Thank you for listening to us, guys. Thank you for being part of our walk. We always are appreciative of every person who listens to this, be it for the first 10 minutes or the full 40 minutes or whatever we're on now. Yeah, guys, thank you. We couldn't do this without you guys, so we appreciate it.
Absolutely. Guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share this video, share this podcast.
And that's for the 21st time, guys.
Yes, episode 21.
But I'm saying, if you guys haven't got that by now, after 21 episodes, please just do it so we don't have to say it every single week.
Oh, we will say it.
We do thank the 15 subscribers, though, by the way.
Are we on 15 now?
15, yeah.
Fantastic. Hey, we're like at an equal number now.
That's great, eh?
That's awesome.
Equal?
Well, like a even number.
Well,
no, 15
it's not an even number. I was going to go there with
it
you.
Feels like
it feels good.
It feels like a benchmark.
Yeah, 15, 5, 10,
or
15, 20.
There we go.
So thank you all.
All right, guys. We'll catch you guys in the next one.
Have a good one.
Cheers.
Cheers, bye.